In this part we're going to animate a basic walk, a simple straightforward walk, and then next week we'll do a character walk, one with personality. And you can see from these drawings here, which are taken from an excellent book called How to Read a Person Like a Book, which I highly recommend you buy. It's an incredibly good introduction to body language, and this shows us how many different ways that people can walk, how many possible variations there are on a walk, and how much a simple pose that someone adopts tells us about their character, their personality, and their mood. But for now we're just going to concentrate on the basics of walking and see if we can't animate a good walk cycle and get started in a well-planned way so that we don't make too many mistakes. Now, walking is a controlled process of falling over. That's basically what it is. If you look at a little child learning to walk, you'll see them falling over all the time, and that's because they haven't yet had enough practice. As adults, we've had tons of practice. We tend not to fall over, but that is essentially what we're doing, is we're falling over but catching ourselves properly. Now, as with all kinds of human and animal locomotion, a great place to start is with Edward Muybridge. Muybridge, if you don't know his work, he was a 19th century English photographer who pioneered stop-motion photography in California in the 1850s. And his work is still an amazing resource for us today. So we go back to Muybridge to get the main positions for a walk. Now, one thing that you'll find in a walk is the shoulders and the pelvis tend to act in opposition to one another. These drawings here are taken from the Animator's Survival Kit, a book which you already know about, and a book which you should have on your shelf already. And it's full of, there's around about 30 pages in there on walks alone, and there's good reason for that because it is the foundation of animation. So, timing a walk, a 6-frame walk, a 6-frame cycle, that would be one stride or one footfall every 6 frames. That would be very, very fast. 8 frames would be, or one footfall every 8 frames. That would be a very fast walk. 12 frames is pretty much a normal walk. This is 12 frames is what we call march time. That's because armies march on march time. And what we're going to do is a 16-frame kind of strolling walk, a kind of an amble, if you like. A 20-frame cycle would be an elderly or tired walk. 24 frames is getting very slow, and a 32-frame walk would be really super slow. That would be almost caricature of a slow walk. A speed walk we probably could do it about as rapid as 1 foot every 6 frames, but that's probably getting pretty extreme. Here's some examples of walks. Here's a nice chipmunk on an 8-frame cycle. This from some old Disney stuff. And you'll see the key poses here: the contact, the squash, the passing, the up position, and then the contact again. So this is 1 step every 8 frames. This is what we always begin with, the contact position. That's the left foot contact. Here's the right foot contact, and we end up with the left foot contact again. Here's a nice walk from the Sheriff of Nottingham from the Disney film Robin Hood, and this is a kind of jaunty walk animated by the late great Disney legend Milt Kahl. And again here you've got the contact position, the squash at frame 3, the passing position, and then the contact again. Squash, passing, contact. It's all about starting with the contact position, and that's how we're going to begin. Now, most people walk on march time. Here's John Cleese doing a very silly walk. We'll come back to that in character walks next week. But most people walk on march time. That's 1 step every 12 frames. And armies march on march time. That's 2 beats per second, 1 step every 12 frames. And if you walk behind, say, commuters, and for those of you who have to commute, if you just walk behind people and just time them out, and if you whistle a marching tune, say Colonel Bogey, which goes like this, and if you just tap out like this in march time, you'll find that this is how most people walk when they're in a hurry. The tapping that you hear here, this is march time, and that's the basic timing. Now we're not going to do that. We're going to go a little bit slower, like this rabbit here, on a 16-frame slower cycle. because it's easier to animate and it feels a little bit less rushed. So here's our basic pattern. We're going to start with the contact position, that's the right foot contact, and I highly recommend that you make thumbnails of your own. You feel free to copy mine out, although there is a little mistake here. I noticed this leg here, this right leg here is actually too close together. These two poses are too similar. At 29 here it probably should be closer to 33 and 1. But we basically start with the contact, that's the right foot contact. Then at 17 there's the left foot contact, remember there's 16 frames apart, and then 33 is the right foot contact again, that's the same as frame 1. So 1 and 33 are going to be the same, but this is our basic formula. Contact at frame 1, squash at frame 5, passing at frame 9, 13 is the up position, that's the high point, you can see here the highest position, then 17 is the contact, 21 is the squash, 25 is the passing, up and contact. And it is kind of, doing a good walk cycle is really like following a recipe when you're cooking. And you know, if you're an experienced chef you can adjust the recipe, but when you're starting out you want to stick to the recipe. So I recommend following this pretty closely. So we begin with the contact. This is again taken from the Animator's Survival Kit. You'll also sometimes hear people call this the stride position. The arms and legs will be opposed to one another. So if the right leg is forward here, then the left arm is forward. The left leg is back, the right arm, oops, am I getting confused here? Well, they're in opposition. Right foot forward, left arm forward. Left leg back, right arm back. That's the basic formula. So we start with a right foot contact. This is usually a straight leg. You want it to be a straight leg because you want a nice contrast with the squash position so that you feel the weight. Then the next thing we're going to do is do the second contact position. And then the third thing is to do the third contact position. And we should animate the character moving across the screen. And this way you'll get the three basic positions for the walk. This is frame 1, 17 and 33, and it's on a cycle, so 1 and 33 are the same. Then we go back and add the passing position. This is where the weight is literally passing from one foot to another. We tend not to lift our leg up, our foot up very high off the ground. We tend to conserve energy. So here's our passing position. That's frame 1 there, and that's frame 17 there. And here now the left leg is passing through the air. So the weight is passing from the right leg to the left leg. Then we're going to add the squash or down position. And this is the weight bearing position, and it's very important here that both feet are taking the weight of the body. I'll show you here in this next slide. So there's the down position or weight position, and this foot here should actually still be on the ground because you want to feel that this foot is still taking weight. If this foot is moving up in the air, then the walk will feel weightless, and this is the most common mistake that students tend to make when they're animating a walk cycle, is to forget that on the weight position both feet are on the ground, both feet are taking the weight. It's only on the passing position, this red one, that this left foot leaves the ground. And here's the up position, that's the high position, and we'll just go in and see how that filters in, and there it is. There's our contact, squash, passing, and then our up position where this left foot is now coming in for the contact. So that's 1, 5, 9, 13 and 17. So you see the timing works very nicely. That's another reason for doing a slightly slower walk. So this is basically half a cycle in the walk. And there's the timing on it. 1, 5, 9, 13, 17. If you follow this formula, you should be successful. Then the next thing I would do is I'd go ahead and put in obviously we started off by doing frame 1, 17 and 33, and we put in these positions here, and then we should go and put them in for the rest as well. So start with the passing position, that'll be at frame 25, then the squash at frame 21, and then the up position at frame 29, and then you'll have the whole cycle. Now there are two ways of animating a walk in Maya. Animating a walk is to animate the walk on the spot. So the character is walking on the spot. then the other way is to have the character advancing across the screen. And you can animate it either way, but we're going to do the second version for this exercise. And the reason for that is it's easier to keep track of the feet on the ground if you animate the character walking across the screen. We'll create a treadmill later on, we'll come back to that, but this is the best way to animate for now. Now we're going to start with a simple character. I suggest Monty. He's a great little character that you can get for free from creativecrash.com. Really nice little rig and really good for our purposes. So now we're going to go back to our 16 frame walk, and this is the full cycle. Feel free to copy out these thumbnails. Right foot contact, squash, passing, up, contact, squash, passing. Actually, this should be the up position here. That should say up. So this is the passing at 25, and then up is at 29, and then contact at frame 33. 33 and 1 are the same, as we've said. So now what we're going to do for our first walk is we're going to simplify this. Take the arms off and just animate a character with no arms, and that's basically Monty. He's got no arms, so it keeps it nice and simple for us. So, but really all Monty is a pair of hips going up and down. So all we have to do is erase the top part of our thumbnails, and we end up with this, and that's all really Monty is. He's basically a bouncing ball with legs. So nice and simple, no upper body. We can just do the basics. But as always with animation, the thing that you want to do is sit down and think about it. You always want to think about what you're going to do and plan it out really well. That's why thumbnails are so important, because the secret with this stuff is really in planning. Then you should act it out yourself. You should walk around the room, get a feeling for how you walk, get a feeling for the locomotion, and get a feeling for the main positions. Make sure you copy out the thumbnails yourself, and what the thumbnails do is it gives you a roadmap of where you want to go. And I always, when I'm copying out the thumbnails, I always write down right foot contact, right foot squash, left foot contact here, right foot contact. It really helps to keep track. And if you do a little kind of shading on the leg that is behind the leg in front, then that again really helps to keep track of what you're doing. If you just do a ball with little sticks coming out, it can get a little confusing as to which leg is which. Once you've done all that, it's time to start animating. But only once you've done your roadmap of where you want to go. Now there's a few things to avoid with Monty. You don't want to have him take big steps. Big long steps is bad, because what happens is the feet IK joints start to stretch out and you start to get nasty clicking. So just keep in relatively small steps when you're starting off. When you're done with your walk cycle, when it's finished, when you've got Monty taking the 2 steps, then what you're going to do is, and this will become more apparent in the tutorial, is you're going to add a Z translation or a Z translation if you're in the States on the world mover and bring Monty back to the origin. So you'll have him taking 2 steps forward, but then by animating the Z translation backwards, he will appear to be on the imaginary treadmill. Then we can do some variations on the walk. If you've got time, go ahead and take a crack at the double bounce walk. Here's the formula for the double bounce. It's an old. If you Google double bounce walk, you'll find you'll have seen it in a million Hollywood movies. And basically, what happens is Monty, instead of, it's an eccentric position on the up position. So at frame 13, we'd expect that to be up here, but instead of going up at 13, it goes down, and then up again at 17, down at 21, and then again here at frame 29, instead of being up, we go down. So what you get is this kind of, you'll see Mickey Mouse do it in the old 1920s shorts. You're going to go up, down, up, down, up, down. It's a nice little variation on a walk cycle, and very easy to do. Another way to do variations on your walk cycle is to start scaling the curves in your graph editor. Just use the scale tool to select all the curves on the character, use the scale tool, and then pump those curves up or down. The more you stretch the curves out, the more you will slow down the walk. The more you compress the curves, the more you will speed up the walk. That's a very cheap way of getting personality and character into it. Here's another simple walk. Here's a 16 frame walk with the flour sack. We'll come back to the flour sack later. It's a really nice little rig. You can make the flour sack walk along too if you like. And finally, you might want to create a turntable. Here's how to do it. You create a simple podium using a polygon primitive cylinder, which you can just create and stick inside your underneath your character. You go ahead and name it in the outliner, call it podium or turntable, and then you select it and you go to Animate Turntable Options, and then maybe try a 192 frame, that's 4 cycles. Then you click on Turntable, set your timeline to 192 frames, and the turntable will slowly turn around, and you'll have a turntable of the walk cycle. Again, this is all shown in the tutorial videos, so you can watch me do it there and then copy it. But a turntable is nice because it's a way of showcasing your walk and making it work effectively. Anyway, that's all the information here for a basic walk cycle. The next thing to do is watch the technical lectures, which introduce you to the rigs, and then go ahead and watch the tutorials themselves.